Hi, I'm Mark, and we need to talk about the xenophobic developments in the United Kingdom. The European Commission has expressed concern about the planned tightening of asylum law in Great Britain. EU Interior Commissioner Johansson said in Brussels that she had requested information from British Home Secretary Suella Braverman as to whether the project was fulfilling London's obligations under international law. British plans will be followed closely by Brussels. The government in London introduced the draft to the House of Commons on Tuesday. Among other things, it is planned that almost all migrants who arrive illegally will first be held in shelters and then deported to Rwanda or other countries, regardless of their country of origin. The right to apply for asylum should be taken away from them. Braverman has acknowledged that this is, to quote her, pushing the limits of international law. And the Tories' long-running course against migrants has indeed far-reaching consequences. In 21-22, for example, 1,334 racist incidents were reported in Northern Ireland. That's 341 more than in the previous year. And it was the second highest number since the Bureau of Statistics began collecting data. Although racism has recently increased in the Republic of Ireland, a new study by the Economic and Social Research Institute shows how unwelcome migrants are, especially in the north, which is legally at the moment not part of the Republic. During the presentation, the authors emphasized that people in Northern Ireland blame migrants for their fears about the future. Another ESRI study explains why the Northern Irish are so pessimistic about the future. In their region, life expectancy of 53 years is the same as in Sierra Leone and 7 years less than in India. And in the Republic, it is 70 years. And nearly 125,000 people from ethnic minorities live in Northern Ireland, in addition to a growing number of refugees. Second and third generation Chinese and Indian residents make up the majority, and people of African descent are also growing in number. In a study commissioned by Belfast City Council, 40% of migrants surveyed said they had experienced racist hate crimes. A similar proportion of parents said that children had been subjected to racist bullying at school. Those who have reported hate crimes to police in the past are largely reluctant to do so again because of unsatisfactory results, as the report states. Those affected report negative experiences in dealing with the police. Just at the beginning of the week, the investigation platform TheDetail.tv reported that abused minors do not receive any support after being reported, but are handed over to the immigration authorities. Racial incidents are particularly common in the Loyalist working class neighborhoods of Belfast and other unionist neighborhoods along the East Coast. Migrants are regularly driven out of their homes at night, their cars are set on fire, and xenophobic messengers are painted on walls. Even of the reported cases, only 6.1% lead to a report by the PSNI. Amnesty International's Peter Corrigan once described Northern Ireland as a safe haven for racists. Right-wing extremist organizations from England have been agitating in Northern Ireland for years. Groups such as the English Defence League and the British National Party cooperate with loyalist paramilitaries and also organize street actions. At the beginning of March, a first night protest took place in front of a refugee shelter in Bangor, a small town east of Belfast. It's almost exclusively unionist, and the paramilitary Ulster Defence Association is influential there. Asylum seekers are accommodated in 2 hotels in Bangor. The protests were organized especially via social media, and false information was spread. Twitter accounts claimed that the Marine Court Hotel had cancelled wedding receptions because it was housing asylum seekers. Instead, the hotel had to file for bankruptcy during the COVID pandemic and was closed for a long time. By accommodating Syrian refugees, the owners hope to guarantee the hotel's financial survival. It is one of 8 hotels in Northern Ireland hosting asylum seekers. Several dozen masked people came to protest, waving British Union Jacks and holding up placards. and you could read something like, "Protect our daughters, stop the invasion." Gary Carroll, MP for the left-wing People Before Profit Party, condemned the protests. These protests spread racist lies to use refugees as scapegoats for the plight of workers, he said. Since there has been no functioning government in Northern Ireland for over a year, no measures could be taken against the growing racism. That's what Equal Opportunities Commissioner Evelyn Collins told the BBC. Political measures are finally needed. But the activists are sobered there. Speaking to the BBC, Kamini Rao said the Stormont Regional Parliament shows no interest in doing anything about racism. And the British government's new bill will not mitigate that. The British government no longer wants to grant asylum to both people who seek refugees in Great Britain, as I said in the start of the video. From now on, anyone who crosses the English Channel should be classified as an illegal migrant and immediately deported to Rwanda or any other country without the chance to seek asylum in the UK. A law to that effect was introduced in the House of Commons by Home Secretary Suella Braverman on Tuesday. That is the one the EU is concerned about. Once passed, it will apply retrospectively to all refugees arriving unlawfully in England from this week onwards. In this way, the government hopes to prevent a last rush before the law can go into effect. The bill obliges the Ministry of the Interior, the Home Office, to immediately deport almost all adults entering the country illegally. The plan is to detain those concerned for a period of 4 weeks and then deport them either to Rwanda or other safe regions of the world. Rwanda is not a safe region, by the way. The newcomers should not apply for asylum, nor should they be able to appeal to British courts in the usual way. They will be banned from returning to Britain after their deportation under penalty of punishment. Even Secretary Braverman, who is now presenting the law to Parliament, is aware that it strikes up against the limits of international law, as I already mentioned. Concerns have also been raised in the ranks of the Conservative Party, of which Braverman represents the right wing, and they are concerned that the British initiative could be incompatible with the European Convention on Human Rights. Braverman has advocated in the past simply turning one's back on the Human Rights Convention. This time, she left open whether it would come to that or not. Sir Robert Neal, Conservative leader of the House of Commons Judiciary Committee, said it was unlikely that this country would leave the Council of Europe to find itself alongside Russia in Belarus. And former Tory Justice Secretary Sir Robert Buckland said there was no majority in Parliament for such a thing. In any case, the country does not have an election in the current situation, said Minister Braverman. We have to stop these boats, and we are doing that with this law. In Westminster, one should no longer shirk for difficult decisions. Anyone who comes there illegally cannot be allowed to stay here with us, she said. And Prime Minister Rishi Sunak, who had already made stopping the boats one of the top priorities of this tenure, expressed the same conviction. In this way, Sunak said, the Brexit promise to take back control of our borders once and for all is being fulfilled. Yeah, my ass. There are plenty of opportunities for refugees to legally enter the UK from certain crisis areas via one of London's official refugee schemes, Sunak added, which is quite a lie. An upper limit for the number of these regularly accepted to be set annually by Parliament. Opposition politicians, refugee associations and Red Cross spokesmen consider this to be window dressing. Critics of Sunak's and Braverman's complain that most people who escape from crisis areas have no other option than to find their own way to the island. And the United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees has already warned the British government that its law is violating the Refugee Convention. Everyone has the right to save themselves from persecution in one country in another. There is no such thing as an illegal asylum seeker. The British Refugee Council pointed out that more than 2/3 of the migrants coming to England via the Channel were currently granted asylum. It is incredible that the government is blocking this escape route for those seeking help. That was said by Council President Enver Solomon. The new law will not bring boats to a halt, but will result in tens of thousands being detained at enormous cost, permanently suspended in mid-air, forgotten by the world, and treated like criminals simply for seeking refuge, said Solomon. In fact, Britain has few agreements with states that would allow the deportation or repatriation of refugees. An agreement reached with Rwanda stipulates that the African state would take in 200 people per year for a period of 5 years. The number of boat refugees who landed in England last year was already 46,000. For this year, 65 to 80,000 illegal migrants are expected on the Channel coast. In practice, this would mean that tens of thousands of newcomers would have to be held in camps until a solution for their deportation could be found. Additional problems arise from the fact that asylum authorities have not been able to keep up with the processing of applications for asylum, which were still permitted until this week, and that for years. A total of around 160,000 applicants are currently waiting for an individual decision, without which they cannot move freely or take up work. Of the applications submitted since 2018, 83% are still on hold, and 97% of those from last year. In this respect, it would have made sense to speed up the application process, explained the opposition Labour Party, and Labour leader Keir Starmer called the new law completely inapplicable and questioned its legality. Yeah, I do that too, by the way. And Starmer also accused the Conservatives of introducing the bill in order to gain voter sympathy with populist slogans. According to recent polls, around half of British voters think blocking illegal migrants from the island is a good idea. Only about a third thinks this approach is wrong. Sunak and the Tory right behind Braverman have successively increased their anti-refugee rhetoric. Braverman had already spoken of a veritable invasion on the south coast of England last year. Speaking in the House of Commons this Tuesday, she told MPs that there were 100 million people around the world who could claim admission under their current laws. And let's talk plain language, they come here. That's what Braverman said. No, not the 100 million will not all come to Britain, but there are reasons why people are coming to Britain. And today, when I'm filming this, that's why it isn't part of this video yet, Rishi Sunak is meeting Emmanuel Macron. And seriously, it was quite hard to keep my breakfast with me when I saw all the comments from Jacob Rees-Mogg, from Richard Tice, from GB News, from the Reform Party, and a lot of others about what Macron is doing before the meeting even started. I will inform you after the meeting, when I do my next video probably, as long as there is enough information about the meeting at the time, what really happened, and not what people are spreading of fake news before a meeting. They already claim they know what Macron demanded during the meeting before the meeting even has happened. So that's a typical way of dealing with those things. And those people are flaring up the mood against migrants. We do have laws for good reasons for how to deal with asylum seekers. And once again, comparing the number of people crossing the English channels in boats and plus the numbers of the Ukrainian refugees the British took in, this is a fraction of what we have here in Germany. And we do have the same amount of xenophobic idiots here. Not the same amount, but the same kind. But not to this amount, fortunately, as I always have to see on all the social media from Britain, in the comments under my videos and so on, and in politics. We have the right-wing AfD, and here in my hometown, they do not get they wouldn't get over the 5% hurdle. My city, for example, was the only one where they didn't reach 5% in the last general election. And so I'm glad I'm living in a city with a lot of reasonable people. Yes, here in Germany we have some problems on the other side as well. On the extreme right, they are twisting the asylum law. They are mixing up asylum with migration and refugees on purpose to flare up people. That's exactly what those people do in Britain. And on the other hand, on the left side, they want to welcome everyone and ignore this separation as well. But there are asylum seekers, there are war refugees, and there are migrants. Migration can have a lot of reasons, mostly in the cases of the migrants, it is economic reasons. And those three have to be separated also in dealing with, and all still in a legal way. But the right-wingers always love to mix them all up. People with a right to asylum have a right to stay as long as this reason is valid. War refugees have a right to find shelter as long as this war is going on. But to make one thing clear, and I'm always getting in discussions here with some extreme left-wingers when I say this, when the war is over, they have to go home to rebuild their country. That is a point with the war refugees, and I know that a lot of people don't want to hear that either, but that is the point. Asylum seekers often have reasons that will have them to let them stay indefinitely. War refugees, if the war is over, they have to go back. And migrants, they can stay if you have a proper immigration law, and that is one of the problems here in my home country. And one of the problems of my own party, I admit that, because you never have 100% agreement with a party when you're in one. And one of the mistakes of my party is that they were blocking a proper immigration law. What we need here in Germany is a points-based immigration law to have migrants coming in. We do need migrants because of shortages. We have far less younger people coming after a lot of older people that did the jobs before. So we do need people here in Germany, and the same applies to the UK. The UK also needs migrants to fill the jobs. But for this you need a proper migration law, and that's lacking here in Germany. And that is the fault of my party as well. And I'm promoting a proper points-based migration law in my party for ages. But we will see when this will come about. I prefer the what do you call it, the draft from the Liberal Party, and maybe they can get that through in their coalition. They are part of the government at the moment. So you see, it's not only about ideology or party politics. I will never agree 100% with my party, as no one ever will. The only party you agree with 100% is where you are the only member. And so if you throw anything at me, your party said that, your party said that, is, yeah, but my opinion was different. Or I agreed with them. But that you will have to find out. And but nevertheless, you have to make this differences between the two kinds of people coming into a country. But the right-wingers and the xenophobic guys don't want to do this. They don't want to have a clear look on who's coming there and for what reasons. And as bad as it is, even the Home Secretary responsible for dealing with these people in need is not making this assumption there. But we will see how this will continue. As I said, I'll tell you in one of my next videos about the meeting of Macron and Sunak, of course, and what that really happened there, and not what was posted on Twitter and everywhere before the meeting. And I'll see you in my next video. I'll be back.